Jared, we finally made it through the election. First of all, how was last week for you?
From like a trading standpoint or just in general?
Yeah, and I mean, your travels, all that.
Well, the trading did not go well. But that's
Really?
okay. And I didn't do so good. But I went to West Virginia University, and what they are doing there is truly remarkable. They are building a free market economics program. And the whole point of this, they got a huge amount of money from a donor. They are trying to rebuild West Virginia, make it a center for investment. So they're doing a bunch of different things. They're putting an economics teacher in every high school in West Virginia. Um, it's it's truly remarkable. So if there was such a thing as a West Virginia ETF, I would buy it. Like they're gonna get rid of the income tax. They're gonna do all kinds of things. It's gonna be very pro growth, and that place is gonna boom.
Yeah, that's awesome. Would you say an economics, what, in every high school?
Economics teacher.
What's like the time horizon on that? That's pretty cool.
It's already happening. Yeah.
So they're
It's
gonna roll
called
it out pretty soon.
it's called the Kendrick Center for Ethical Economics. Um, just amazing stuff. Really great people. So
Very cool. All right, you want to get into this market headlines this week, starting with Bitcoin. Bitcoin hits new record above 82,000, although I think it's still pumping. It's above, oh my God, it's 85.6 plus. So that's insane. Donald Trump's seismic election victory is still reverberating throughout markets. Most eye-catchingly, Bitcoin prices are surging above 85K now. In addition, the dollar is strengthening and stock futures are higher. So, I mean, what do you think? Is Bitcoin just going to the moon? Is it going to 100K? What do you make of this run up? And I mean, crypto in general.
I wouldn't fade the chart. I was looking at a chart of Coinbase today, and Coinbase is still below where it was on the IPO, but not by much. And it's got a couple of runaway gaps. It's gapping higher. I would not fade any charts in crypto. Like I would not stand in front of this. You mentioned the dollar. The dollar has gotten a lot stronger. I think this is incorrect. I think the dollar should be weaker. If you believe that Trump and JD Vance are America first, they're going to want to devalue the dollar in order to encourage exports. That's what Trump did in his first term. That's what JD Vance explicitly said he was going to do if he got elected. So the strength in the dollar, I mean, I understand why it's happening, but still it kind of puzzles me. A lot of it's based on rates. Everybody expected rates to go higher. Rates did go a little bit higher, then kind of are not. I think rates are actually going lower. So I'm really caught in the middle of all this trading, and I'm not doing very well. And it's been unpleasant. So
Speaking of Vance, just because we've talked books on this podcast before, you've ever read his book?
yeah, I did.
You did? How was it? I saw the movie when it came out a few years ago, but I haven't read his book.
It's not bad. I mean, he's a smart guy. He's not an incredible writer. It was super interesting to see what, like the hills of Kentucky were like in the 1980s, like that whole culture, and how, all these hillbillies, if you'll pardon the expression, moved to Ohio. So you have places like Springfield, you heard about Springfield with the Haitian migrants. Well, that's really one of these towns that you had this big migration from Kentucky. They call it Spring-tucky. And they went to Middletown, or they call it Middle-tucky, right? All these places in Western Ohio. All that stuff is super interesting. I mean, I think the fact that JD Vance came from, like, if there was a social scientist and saw JD Vance as a child, they probably would have declared his case hopeless. Living in that kind of poverty with a broken family and drugs and stuff like that, they just would have declared his case hopeless. And through determination and intelligence and hard work, he becomes vice president of the United States. I mean, it really, and the thing about it is, even though he has a book about it, and even though there's a movie about it, really not that many people know his story and how remarkable that is. He's had a lot of luck. He's had a lot of very lucky breaks. One of the reasons he got that book is because his advisor at Yale Law School was Amy Chua. Amy Chua wrote that book about the Tiger Mother about 10 years ago. And I think he has Amy Chua's literary agent. So he's had a ton of lucky breaks, but I mean, the guy totally deserves it. I disagree with him on a bunch of stuff, but he's kind of a kindred spirit. He's kind of a smart kid that grew up poor, so went in the military, went to finance, etc.
All right, next up from Reuters, hedge funds pile into banks, dump green energy post-U.S. election. Goldman Sachs says hedge funds snapped up bank stocks at the quickest clip in 3 years while taking bets against renewable electricity producers last week as investors reacted to Donald Trump's win in the U.S. presidential election. How are you feeling about bank stocks, and which sectors are you bullish on, bearish on, now that the election's kind of behind us here?
I feel great about banks. They all jumped up about 10% after the election, which seemed a little bit much. But I mean, if you were going to own one bank stock here over the next 4 years, I think it would be Goldman Sachs. I think Goldman Sachs is up like 12% on election day. It's not so much that banks are really going to be deregulated per se, but the government has basically used the financial industry as a giant piggy bank for fines for whatever misdeeds they've committed ever since the financial crisis. The DOJ extracts billions of dollars of fines out of the banking industry every year. I'm kind of hoping that's going to come to an end. So yeah, and also, the funny thing is that one of the main thesis for bank stocks going up is that the yield curve would steepen. Everybody thought the yield curve would steepen when Trump got elected. We talked about that for months. It's actually flattened. It's done the opposite. But bank stocks are still up. So
this is in the Wall Street Journal this morning. Bond market in focus following election. So stocks notched their biggest week of the year after Donald Trump's election victory. Now it is the bond market that investors are watching. Treasury yields climbed after Tuesday's election, lifted by bets that a second round of Trump tax cuts will boost growth, inflation, and budget deficits. Stocks and Treasury yields similarly surged 8 years ago when Trump claimed his first electoral win, a major part of what investors called the reflation trade. So I want to get your thoughts on this. Inflation, deficits, and interest rates are all much higher now than they were back then. Some fear a sustained rise in yields could disrupt stock gains, further pressuring the housing market and slowing the economy. What do you make of bonds right now?
I totally disagree. First of all, I think short bonds is one of the most crowded trades out there. Look, I think, sure, over any long-term time horizon, like 3, 4, or 5 years, I think yields are going to be higher. But over the next couple of months, I think they're going to be lower. And I don't know why you would get bearish on the housing market on this rising rates thesis, because rates went from 0% to 5%, and the housing market actually went up. So I don't think that's a very good thesis. I think the housing market is bulletproof for reasons we talked about, before.
All right, let's take it over to the main topic. I want to talk a little Trump and the Fed here. I mean, for starters, as anticipated, as we talked about last week, the Fed cut 25 basis points. And then in a press conference following the announcement, Fed Chair Jerome Powell declined to comment on the central bank's plans for future cuts. Before we kind of get into this Trump-Powell beef that seems to be brewing, let's start with future cuts. Considering proposed tariffs, tax cuts, mass deportations, and a surge in Treasury yields, how unlikely do you think it is for the Fed to continue cutting rates in 25?
I don't think they will cut rates in 25. I think they're going to cut one more time in December. Maybe they might not. Cash carry was recently making some noises about not cutting rates. They might not cut in December. They might. I don't know. I don't think they're going to cut in 25. I think Trump getting elected changes the whole calculus. You can provide some economic justification as to why that is. The economy is going to grow faster under Trump. There's going to be more inflationary pressures. Or the Fed is 95% Democrats and they're just trying to screw Trump, which is also a possibility. It's probably a little bit of both.
So, as for Trump v. Powell, this is from an article in the Wall Street Journal. If Trump tries to fire Powell, Fed chair is ready for a legal fight. So, 6 years ago, after flirting with removing Jay Powell in a dispute over interest rates back in 2018, Trump is heading back to the White House, and the dormant drama of his fraught relationship with Powell is back on full display. When asked last week whether he would resign, Powell offered a one-word reply. No. He gave the same answer when asked if the president had the authority to dismiss him. How do you see this unfolding, and how disruptive could this be for markets?
I think this is going to have a happy ending. Powell's term only extends 1 year into Trump's term. So, Powell is basically a lame duck Fed chairman. He's going to be replaced in 2026. So I think Trump is not going to spend a bunch of time trying to get rid of Powell. I think he's going to spend time picking the next Fed chairman. I think it could be Kevin Warsh. I think it could be Kevin Hassett. I'm sure there's people I haven't thought of. So that's I think Trump is going to focus his energy on that. That was that question from a reporter at the press conference. I mean, obviously that was designed to get headlines, but I don't think that's going to be a big deal.
Wall Street Bets had some funny stuff on that. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you've seen the Wolf of Wall Street, right?
No.
Oh, really? Okay. Well,
No.
then I can't even make the joke. I can't make the joke. It's too bad. You got to go watch it. Private equity check in here. How bullish is a Trump second term here for PE? And does this change your time horizon for your big short idea?
Oh, my God. Yeah, it's very bullish for PE. It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. What can I say? I mean, the only thing I'll say is that when this thing finally blows, it is going to be a supernova. It's going to leave a black hole. So, but I'm willing to not talk about PE for the next couple of years because this is whatever. I mean, and it's not like I was hoping or praying for Kamala to win for PE to go down, but this is not the outcome I was hoping for. So,
are you surprised by how easily Trump ran away with that election? Because we kind of talked about it last week. We thought it was, or at least I thought it was going to be much closer, but it was borderline.
Yeah,
I thought
it would have been closer. I'm surprised. I was surprised he won the popular vote by as much as he did.
Me too.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of had a sense that Trump was going to win, but I didn't know it was going to be by that much, and I didn't know he was going to pick up 3 seats in the Senate, and I didn't know that he was going to win the House. I like some of the betting sites had a Republican sweep at like 46%, which seemed really high to me, but I guess it was the right odds.
But it seemed like Polymarket was actually all over that Trump prediction from the start, pretty much.
Did you hear the story behind that?
Well, I had heard some stuff about like whales pumping it, but I don't know if that was just Democrats coping.
So they tracked down one of the whales that bet $30 million on Trump. And it's actually a French guy. And he had a sense that the polls were wrong. So he developed his own polls, right? And the polls are very misleading because if you ask somebody if they're going to vote for Trump, they're either going to lie to you or not answer your question, right? So the polls are not accurate. So he developed a poll where he asked people, do you think your neighbor is going to vote for Trump? And people said, well, obviously, yes. And that's where he got the big numbers for Trump. And he said, Trump is absolutely going to win. Then he bet $30 million. So his polls were superior to the pollsters in the United States. So
do you know how much he won off that bet?
Probably like 25 million.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. All right, looking at the week ahead, we got CPI on Wednesday, initial jobless claims for the week ending November 9, along with PPI on Thursday, and retail sales on Friday. Any of these on your radar this week you're going to be looking at?
I don't think the data really matters that much. I mean, everybody's still focused on the election.
Yeah.
Like I think the data kind of takes a back seat here.
That's all I got for you today. You got anything else you want to talk about here before we go?
It's funny. I got an email about night moves today, and it's from a guy who said he hadn't read any fiction in 10 years. And he was very skeptical. Like, he's like, okay, I'll read it, And he said it was one of the best books he'd ever read. Totally engrossed in it. Couldn't put it down. Love the characters. Love the stories. And then he says to me, he's like, "What other books like this would you recommend?" And I was like, "Man, that's the whole point. Like, there are no other books like this that I would recommend."
Yeah,
Like,
definitely.
that's the problem. Like, that's the problem we have.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. Nowadays, you're not finding that book in Barnes and Noble when you're just going down the aisles.
Yeah.
Not happening.
So,
well, Jared, it was good talking to you. I'll talk to you here soon, and everyone will be back next week. Until then, take care.
see ya.
Later.